Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the Mining Podcast. And today's guest is Michael Jones, who's the CEO and president of Los Andes Copper, who are a TSX-listed Canadian company focused on developing the Vizcachitas copper-moly porphyry project in Chile. Michael's a geologist by background with a proven track record in discovering and developing mines. And he's here today to tell us more about Los Andes Copper and the milestones that they have achieved. So that's welcome, Michael, to the podcast. How you doing, Michael?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I appreciate your time as well. Obviously, you're Canadian, but you are in London and moved over to the UK. So welcome.
Thank you.
I wondered if you can just give us a background about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your career, probably from when you sort of graduated, how your career's developed to sort of current day.
Great. Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm a geological engineer by background, went to University of Toronto. And I've always really kind of worked on my own, largely on companies actually that I've founded. So companies that I've founded are such as Mag Silver, which is a major silver discovery in Mexico. Platinum Group Metals, I worked with for 20 years as a founder and outlined 19 million ounces of resources there. Also Westvault Mining with a deposit in Nevada. All of those projects really have been developed from the discovery stage up into advanced engineering and construction decisions. And that's really my specialty, is bringing these projects along. And I was very attracted to Los Andes because it was a classic world-class asset that was ready to take those steps and move towards the next phases of engineering and development. So this really fits right into my career background, and I was very pleased to get a call and the opportunity to be able to join this team.
Yeah. Wonder if you can give us an overview of the company, Los Andes.
Sure. Well, Los Andes is focused on the Vizcachitas deposit. It's been around for a long time. Many people would know the asset in the mining circles, and it's been fairly fragmented in land positions and permits and so on for quite a long time. So it's not been easy for the company to be able to move this asset forward into the next stages of development, and that's all changed now. The asset is well consolidated within Los Andes, listed on the TSX-V under the symbol LA. And we're able now to advance this project rapidly. So we've actually got permits for over 300 drill holes to continue to expand this resource. So it's already a world-class asset, about 13 billion pounds of copper and copper equivalent. So it's massive. It's truly world-class. It's 1.2 billion tons of measured and indicated resource, classic porphyry copper, but it hasn't been fully explored yet. And right now we're drilling to expand that deposit and looking at some of the higher grade areas. So it's a very exciting time for the company. And the team is also world-class. That's part of what attracted me to this asset, was that you've got people on the ground in Chile that come from the porphyry copper and major copper industry. So Fernando Portilla is the executive chairman, 50 years of experience in big copper companies. Manuel Mata, also 20-year plus experienced engineer on the mine plan. So the team that's putting this engineering and package together to move it up the curve are truly world-class, which matches the asset. And what was interesting is when I investigated the company, really not a lot of people knew about it. It really been pretty a private sort of public company for quite a long time. And now is the opportunity to both move the company forward, but let people know about it.
Obviously, you've been newly appointed as the CEO, and you may have sort of covered this in what you've just said, but I suppose what were the main points that actually attracted you to the company? Was it the asset? Was it the management? Was it a combination of both, or was it something else?
Yeah, it's really three things that you look for if you're going to invest your money as a shareholder. It was the same thing for me investing my time and effort as a CEO. And the first thing is, what's the setting around the commodity? When I look at Vizcachitas, it's a world-class copper asset. What's the background around copper? And, we can talk about it in a minute, but I think is a tremendous time for copper, and the world is moving towards electrification. So that was super attractive, just the setting around the metal in the first place. The second thing was the asset itself. And one of the things I did was a lot of due diligence on this before I joined as CEO. A lot of the work's already been done. What was the quality of that work? And I went through the data room, through all of the technical work that had been done as an engineer, and I was extremely impressed. And the team has advanced this work up to PFS level, which is yet to be completed, but they've done a lot of the work already. And I was very impressed with how that was organized and done. And then the final thing is, what's the setting in the investment market? Is this company fully valued? Do all the analysts know about it and it's already trading at full value, or maybe it's overvalued? In this particular case, against its peers, this company is trading at a third of what its peers are trading at when I look at the net present value of the asset. So that was extremely attractive to me to put effort into getting that exposure out there. So, I would say commodity, technical work, and valuation were the three things that I looked at before I came on as CEO.
Yeah. Obviously, can you tell us a little bit more about copper and obviously its role in electrification and the global green transition, and how Los Andes and its Vizcachitas project fits into sort of all of this?
Yeah, well, I mean, most people know that we're moving towards electrification. I think that's a well-acknowledged fact, even before COP26 and so on came out. But, I think electrification in the background, people don't recognize the major changes that are going to come with copper as a result. So the first thing is just in electrification and urbanization around the world. A lot of people are urbanizing, and they're urbanizing in a way towards high electrical usage. So not only just in the normal household wiring and plumbing and sort of uses that we're used to, but looking at electric vehicles. Electric vehicles, of course, have a lot of windings. Every electric motor is heavily loaded with copper. There's a huge increase in the amount of copper in a vehicle. And then there's the transmission of the increased load of electricity itself. And another factor that a lot of people don't count into effect is the sustainable nature of electricity generation. So if we're going to look at sustainable sources of electricity, we're looking towards small areas generating electricity, all needing to be connected to the grid. So it's estimated that sustainable energy uses about 6 times as much copper as a conventional source of energy because of this distribution. So you've got a massive increase in the amount of copper. On the flip side of that, of course, is the supply side. So what's the supply of copper doing? Well, Chile, where the project is based, is a third of the world's copper production. And those mines have been around for a long time. So there's an enormous amount of sustaining capital and a generally declining grade profile that's going on behind the scenes. And that sets a very tight market for this metal. The other thing is, a lot of the easy deposits, the big ones right at surface, have been found. And Vizcachitas is very interesting because it is 13 billion pounds of copper sitting relatively near surface at a low elevation in terms of access. It's not way up high in the mountains, and it's near infrastructure. So all of those are very unusual features that contrast the general market for copper and this drive towards electrification with a relatively tight supply.
Obviously, you mentioned Chile's significant producer of copper. How important is it for the country to inevitably electrification-driven demand increase for that critical mineral?
Sure. Well, just to be precise, in 2020, Chile produced 5.7 million metric tons of copper, or 28.5% of the world's copper. But also in Chile itself, it was 48% of exports and 10% of GDP for Chile for the last 2 decades. So, Chile and copper are almost synonymous. It's a cornerstone of the Chilean economy. And regardless of politics in Chile, there's no question that copper development has to be part of its future. Economically, there's no choice. What's interesting too is that even just to sustain current copper production, there's $68 billion worth of sustaining capital that has to go in the next few years. That's just to hold it even. So the investment climate is not only about growth of copper and new deposits like Vizcachitas, but it's also about even just being able to keep the investment climate stable enough that that sustaining investment can go in. And I think that's a perspective that, you know, a lot of investors might not see, is that it's not only a cornerstone of the economy, but it also needs investment constantly to keep the production the way it is.
Yeah, and how is the government's thesis on copper? Obviously, it's a major commodity for the country. How I mean, open are they with, I suppose, new companies coming into the country, exploring for copper? And how is the mining legislation? And is it pretty easy to do business with them? Is there a lot of pushback? How would you sum it up with obviously government relations?
Sure. The first thing is that mining rights are very secure in Chile. So your fundamental right to mine is very secure under the Constitution. That's the first point, as you would expect. The second thing is, you know, in all mining environments right now, we have two things going on. The first one is the drive to increase sustainability and governance around the environment, and Chile's no exception. And that's a global trend that all mining companies have to be aware of and live within. So I think Chile's no different. Governance and environment are going to be much more important going forward, and all companies have to work with that. And that creates a kind of level playing field, if you will, in terms of that environment around the world. I think every country is the same. The second thing is there has been some increase in pressure around taxes, and we've had some super taxes proposed by the Chilean government. It remains to be seen what the final outcome of all that discussion is, and there's a second round of the presidential election coming up in mid-December, which will be important. And I think, again, it doesn't matter whether it's left or right side of the political table that wins. You go back to the cornerstone of the investment in the country. So, you know, we feel that mining legislation in Chile is very stable, strong, because of this importance in the economy. It's really a net, has to be maintained, is the way I would characterize it.
Some investors are concerned about, obviously, politics and royalties in Chile. We've seen some aggressive statements in Peru. What can you say about Chile and the environment for mining?
Yeah, I think this is part of the political debate. And, you know, I think that are we likely to see some increase in taxes and taxes on extremely high profits? Probably. And again, this is a global trend. So the competitive environment around is the same. And so we're seeing this in many, many countries around the world. And at the end of the day, you don't want to kill the goose that lays the golden egg or the copper egg, as the case may be. So I think you're going to see an environment that allows for sustaining capital and new capital to come in to keep Chile's leading position in copper as it is.
So back to the Vizcachitas copper project. It's looking like obviously a world-class project, as you mentioned, and obviously a globally significant asset. You're currently drilling in advance of finalisation of the resources for the upcoming pre-feasibility study. How is the actual project developing?
Well, we're really excited about this phase. As I said, part of the area to the north of the deposit, directly in contact with the deposit, we haven't been able to drill for some time, and that's where we're drilling right now as we speak. So we're going to go up to 3 drill rigs shortly, likely to add more drill rigs early in the new year. So we're really going after this higher grade portion of the north part of the deposit. And we're very excited about that. We're also excited about the depth potential. Typically, these porphyry copper systems, they become stronger at depth and more mineralized at depth. And we see that in some of our earlier drilling. But exploring north and deeper is something that we're doing right now with the drill turning. I watch that every morning. And for investors, this is an opportunity to see what the true potential of this system is. So I think it's a great opportunity to be part of this change in the dynamic of this world-class system.
Yeah, and what would you like to say to any potential investors who are looking to potentially invest in the company?
Well, really, it's to think about the company like I did when I decided to join. That, you know, There's three reasons to be interested in as an investor. First one is it's a great time for copper. The second one is it's a great time for the company. You know, we're clearly not trading on the existing asset with our peers. There's an opportunity for this company to re-rate. We're seeing analysts now start to pick up on this. We're presenting to a lot more people, and we're starting to see the investment community take notice. Doing that even later today on a sales desk. So it's a great time for the company. And then, you know, finally, this is a world-class asset which is going to roll out, and then we're going to see exciting developments start to roll out. So the valuation has the opportunity to change with news and with just a recognition of what the company has. So it's the right time to be here.
Yeah. And a conclusion, what's the outlook for the next sort of 12 to 18 months? And is there anything else like you would like to add?
Well, I think the thing is really around milestones. So next milestone is drilling results, which we expect early in the new year. So you really should look at the company, you know, in this period going up into the first part of 2022. We've got a milestone for the pre-feasibility study at the end of the first quarter. That might get pushed out a little bit if the drill results are as significant as we think. We may have to remodel the pit a bit, which will be for good reason. But that pre-feasibility study into next year is going to be a major engineering milestone for recognition of the asset. And then finally, really just re-rating of the company, which will occur over the next 3 quarters, really, where we get the company recognized by the investment community. So that's what investors should be looking for. And those are pretty immediate milestones. And yeah, that's why you should be here as a shareholder.
Yeah. Michael, really appreciate your time. It sounds like an interesting journey that you're going to be on over the next sort of 9 to 12 months at least, if not obviously further on. If our audience wants to reach out to you, how can they go about doing that? Are you on any social media platforms?
The company's not specifically on Facebook. There's a project Facebook page, but there's really just come through our website at losandes.com. That's the best way to find us.
Yeah, no worries. Well, it's certainly an exciting time, especially with the re-rating. Obviously, that will help obviously with your valuation, and we'll obviously wish you well in that. Hope audience, I hope you enjoy listening to this. Please pass and share this episode on. There's obviously some great content around the company that Michael has presented. Copper is obviously essential, and there is an undersupply of the commodity, and it certainly is needed for the next coming decades. So appreciate if you can share and like this episode. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, appreciate if you can share and like the episode, push it out to all corners of the universe. So because obviously some people that may not even be involved in mining may come across this and obviously get their interest. So Michael, really appreciate your time again. And until next time, happy mining.